Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Wandering Podcast, where we take advisement from outside the box. I'm Rihanna Ritter, your host. I'm an intuitive, sexuality, and authentic expression coach. Are you an accomplished professional who plays the part of having it all figured out? Who's strong for everyone else, but feels lonely, misunderstood, like you can't tell anybody the truth about how stressed you are, how not passionate you are about your life and all that you've created? I guide my clients to deep, lasting fulfillment. I re-engage them with their bodies, their pleasure, their desire. I help them align to enjoy fulfillment and prosperity in all areas of their lives.
Today, my guest is Anne Russo. She's a mental health professional, author, and advocate specializing in sex positivity, queer issues, and religious trauma. She offers training programs, consulting services, and publications to support mental health providers and improve client care. Anne's continuing education courses are in the final phase of approval by ASWB, ACE for social workers, MFTs, and APCCs. Her key courses include Understanding Ethical Non-Monogamy, Sexual Health and Religious Trauma, Healing from Sexual Trauma, BDSM and Kink. Welcome, Anne. It's so great to have you here.
Hi, thank you. It's great to be here.
Yeah, so there's so much to talk about here. So many people are afraid to talk about these things, especially, healing from sexual trauma, BDSM, and kink. And I think I'd like to start there. I don't know, there's a lot of directions we could go, but why do you find people are so afraid of the idea of BDSM and kink, and how does it impact healing from sexual trauma?
So I think that the issue with most folks is just a lack of knowledge more than it is anything else. I think society has kind of couched BDSM and kink to look a certain way in our movies and our media. And that's not really the full story behind it. And if you really move in some of these spaces and work with some of these folks, you will see just how much empowerment is behind it, rather than these negative viewpoints that are kind of held by the maybe general society.
Yeah, I think we get our information from porn, from movies like Pulp Fiction and movies like 50 Shades of Grey. And those are just, it's just not at all what it's about, right?
Yeah, exactly. Now, I'm not going to say that there aren't people who practice in those ways, but the healthy way, when you're really in the groups, or you're in the movements or in the community, there's really a lot of empowerment and consent involved in a very high level. And that is what helps people move through trauma. And I think it's important to recognize too that BDSM and kink itself isn't necessarily sexual. It can be, but it isn't always. But it really is about your body and what feels good to you, what feels safe to you, and exploring that with other people.
Yeah. And I'm imagining, I'm experiencing from growing up in strict fundamentalist Christian religion. I grew up Jehovah's Witness. We had very negative talk about sexuality. I mean, they advocate for marriage, sex within marriage, male and female only, and that anything outside of that is dangerous and kind of like an abomination, and it goes against what God wants. And so also just masturbation was taught as sinful. And I think women in particular are taught that our bodies are for the pleasure of men and not for our own pleasure. So when we're talking about BDSM, if we're not even able to touch ourselves and feel anything but shame, it's really hard to get into sex with another individual, right?
Oh, 100%. And so I would look at this as stages. And this may also, BDSM and kink is not for everybody. It is a niche, and that's fine. The goal of all of these trainings and writing and public and working with clients and mental health therapists is for people to feel empowered around their bodies and to feel empowered around their needs and understanding themselves. So there isn't a model of relationship or sex or sexuality, as long as it's truly consenting adults, that I would look at and go, this is negative or this is bad, right? So if someone said, I believe that masturbation is wrong, I truly believe that in my heart, I don't want to do it, it's not for me, I have no desire to do this, this is how I believe I should be having sex, and and that truly is good for me, that's really where I'm at, fine. What I'm looking for is authenticity, having someone understand themselves. What does it mean to be empowered? So even coming back to maybe this particular person who believes that sex is for procreation only with her husband, she should be able to communicate that to her husband. I don't want to have sex with you right now. This is when I have sex, and for this reason. That's being empowered too. And I think sometimes we lose the idea of empowerment doesn't look one particular way. It just means understanding and advocating for yourself.
Yeah. And how many, I don't think we can put a number on this, but how often do we see that people are unable to advocate for themselves, and they're unable to actually know themselves in that way because they've been layered with trauma and programming?
The religious trauma around sexuality, I think, is pervasive, especially as we're speaking about women. I think could not be more true. I mean, just with the idea of purity culture and the trauma that causes for women. One of the things that I think we need to really look at is we need to start pulling apart what's God and what's man's, and I think that a lot of times people are following a man's version of what God wants. And if we really spend some time, if you're a believer in a certain faith and really spend some time in that scripture, what is that scripture saying to you? What are, like, we're created in the image of God. Would God want us to do things that were going to be harmful to us? Would God want, and sex is such a natural part of who most of us are. Of course, there are some people that are asexual, but for the most part, that's a very biologically normal thing. God created us to be sexual beings. So to be told that it's wrong from the time you're a little child how does one even begin to reconcile that? I'm created wrong, basically, is what you're being told as a child.
Yeah.
And I want to know what loving God does that.
Right.
I mean, I really,
why create someone in your image to just tell them that they're disgusting?
yeah.
Which is kind of an interesting phenomenon, because that does happen with parents. When you're a person who has a lot of unresolved trauma and deep shame, and you are operating from your wounded inner child, and you haven't had therapy and things like that, and then you have children, you will notice all of the ways that you reject your child, like their exuberance, their desire to play and be free and be loud. If you catch them masturbating, they're touching a part of their body and it feels good, and then you shame them and you tell them it's disgusting, and it's not because that's what you truly believe. It's usually because you were told that, and you're just repeating the model that's passed down to you. So
Exactly.
How much do we really know ourselves? How much do we really explore ourselves?
Absolutely. And I think that one of the most important things that we can do as providers around mental health and support is to be comfortable enough to have these dialogues with our clients. And I think it really does start there, because I can't tell you how many therapists that I have worked with and trained and supervised that are so uncomfortable to talk about sex and sexuality. So we have to, start there at what I feel is the root, is training on these topics. So mental health providers feel comfortable and knowledgeable enough to talk about these things. When I first advertised my first course on polyamory, working with open relationships, couples in open relationships, I got so much hate. Like, I can't even tell you how much hate. And I was stunned at it, because I wasn't promoting any particular way of being. It was, hey, mental health providers, here is a course that you can take to learn how to work with clients that are in open relationships, if that is a population you're interested in working with, right? So just the mere idea of an open relationship for some was enough to just attack me, really, and that only speaks more to me about how much this education is needed. Because if I'm experiencing that by offering a training, I can't even imagine what people that are trying to live in open relationships are experiencing.
Yeah, it is not the job of the mental health professional to project their own morality onto their clients. And
Exactly.
I think that we've been confused about that for a very long time.
Absolutely, 100%. And that goes both ways. Like, I have a much more liberal perspective on things, but if I'm working with a client that comes out of a more conservative background, I respect that background. And I work within their framework, because it's not my job to make anybody something. It's my job to help them find their authentic voice.
Absolutely. And sometimes the best way to do that is to validate what their experience is right now, so that they can feel a little more safe in their own body. And the more safe they can feel in their body, the more edges they may push or not push, but they'll find the clarity of, this is actually me. This is what I want. This is not trauma and layers of conditioning.
I love what you just said when you said it's not trauma and layers or conditioning. I was doing a women's group for a while, and it was about female sexual empowerment. And one of the participants said something, and it really stuck out to me. I want to get to a place where I can say yes. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is so interesting, because so often we talk about women having the ability to say no, right? I don't want this.
Right.
And from her perspective, it was like, I want to be in a place where I'm comfortable enough within myself to say yes to pleasure. And I just loved that. It just spun it on its head. And, I learned something really important that day. And I just take that with me, that for some women, it's learning how to say yes.
Absolutely. We cap our own pleasure so much of the time by being stuck in our head. I mean, for me particularly, it came through as like I was doing all my to-do lists, but my view of sex was that if I don't have sex with my partner, he's going to leave or he's going to cheat on me. And so I have to do this, even if I don't want to. And I have to come up with a certain frequency, like it's got to be this many times a month or a week, or as things progressively got worse in the relationship, like twice a year was a lot. But like you become when you, like, if you're in a relationship with a partner and twice a year is feels like a lot of sex, I think it's time to examine the relationship that you have with yourself and within the relationship, and that is not healthy. I think so many women believe that it's totally normal and healthy for us to not have a sex drive, like to be exhausted and serving other people. And so we don't, you know, half of the women in the world don't experience orgasm or have never. Um, so that is very normalized. And then the only advice women are really given is, well, it used to be, I don't even know if Cosmopolitan still exists, but we had a magazine that was like, this is how to give a good blowjob. This is how to look sexy. It was never about our pleasure.
Absolutely. It's about keeping your man sexually satisfied to despite what that experience is like for you. And all the jokes around it, and it's just, it's terrible. So my goal is to teach women that it's okay to have pleasure. It's okay to have a voice in their own sexual experience. It's okay to say yes, and it's okay to say no.
Yeah.
And be authentic in that, and explore their bodies and be comfortable. And I know that it's hard. I mean, I know what society has taught us. One of the things that's so fascinating is, growing up, I am a queer person. And while I did date men when I was younger, I didn't feel the same kind of, I think, hangups around like the heterosexual women feel. And as I started working with clients and talking to my friends as we got older, I could not believe how many women were having sex that did not want to have sex or would hide. I have a friend, and she was so funny because she's like, I want you to put this in your book. She's like, I hide in the bathroom till he falls asleep. Like, I'm like, that is horrible. Like, she's like, I don't even want his toe to touch me. You know what I mean? Like, it's like got to like that place where like, because the sex has always been about him. Now, if it had been about them, I wonder if she'd feel the same way. I mean, who wants to do something that's not pleasurable over and over and over again?
Yeah, that's where we end up in pain. And do, the more times you abandon yourself to please somebody else, the more you erode your trust and love for yourself. And then you start to not know if you even have discernment.
Exactly.
And that's scary.
It is, and it's pervasive. I mean, it's shocking to me because that's just not the way that I have lived in a relationship. But I do see that does tend to be more of a problem that women in straight relationships face. So I just want to give women voice.
Yeah, that makes sense. And it seems like, men also, what I learned growing up was basically that men are physical beings and they don't care about emotional intimacy. And as long as they're ejaculating, then they're good to go. And men, all people, all genders are emotionally complex beings that have depth, and they want to be loved, like truly loved, not just physically. So
these messages are damaging for everybody.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to name that, because I think oftentimes people may hear, okay, female sexual empowerment, is that some kind of man bashing? And it's not at all any kind of man bashing. It's about all genders being able to have their needs met. My male friends, I see a lot of pressure that they experience as well about how they're supposed to show up sexually. And that is really, to me, equally just a shame.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it seems like they're given this message that is not even what, maybe they had a partner that gave them that message, or maybe they're getting that message from their male community. But like most of what they think women want, we don't.
Totally. I can't even begin to tell you my poor male clients, that they come in with challenges as they get older with erections, and they feel like everything about them has just been destroyed. And I ask them, well, are there other things that you can do sexually? Are there other ways that you can connect with a partner physically? But it's like they're so hung up on whether or not they can keep their dick hard, frankly,
Yeah.
that they don't even have the ability at that point to understand that that may not be what actually pleases their woman. So it's it's so complicated, but they don't talk to each other though. That's the other issue too, right? Like, we're sitting here having this conversation, but like the partners need to talk to each other and have these
Yeah.
sessions. What do you like? What don't you like? What makes you feel comfortable? What makes you feel safe? What gives you pleasure? And tackle these issues head on.
And so many people are not emotionally resilient enough to have that conversation. They take any sort of feedback as criticism, and they get wounded, and then they get into a fight, or it causes more division between them. So I think the way we go about the conversation is to be not trying to be in the act right now, but to talk objectively. I like this, and to not judge our partner for liking that. But
Exactly.
if we are judging ourselves for liking something like that, and again, that comes with religious and societal shame.
Yes. The religion, unfortunately, has done a doozy here when it comes to sexuality. I hope that that's changing a bit. First, I see more open-minded denominations of Christianity, more so than like 20 years ago even, and that are talking about these topics, and your love of God does not correlate with your ability to deny your sexuality.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, so I think that's great, that's wonderful, but there's a lot of damage to undo.
There is, because
Yeah.
I see the same, and what's wonderful is that it's like the way we spend our dollars. Our demand is what fuels what is available to us in the marketplace, and religion is the same. If the people require a more open, inclusive
Yes.
experience in
Yes.
religion, then
Yes.
it will become available, because the church does need to make money. That's how they
Yes.
stay open.
Yeah, oh my gosh, that's so true. That is such a good point. Because yeah, and you do see, I know that because I really studied religion very deeply, I have some insights that maybe, folks that go to church may not have. But some of these ideas that we have around sex and sexuality, I mean, these are new ideas too. Or even the idea of like what the word of God actually means, or how long this particular denomination has been around. So these aren't like hard and fast human truths that we're living in right now either. So I like to encourage people to take time and really assess why they believe what they believe.
Absolutely. If you're going to be, because I think even with those more open, non-denominational Christian, you still see this tension when you see different gendered people there. You still have those conservative members that are like deeply uncomfortable, and they're not questioning. They just assume that they're right. They do see it as a fundamental human truth. But the fact is, these beliefs have been around a couple thousand years, but we've been around 20,000 or longer, and things they're always changing. And beliefs are just beliefs. That it doesn't mean that anything is actually good or bad or right or wrong. It's just what is popular.
Yeah, exactly. It's what's popular. So we have to do the work and look at our own ideas of morality and our values and our ethics and where they come from. And obviously, we could get into a whole philosophical discussion about morality. But I think that if you look at the the overarching message, what is the overarching message? If we're not lost in the weeds, what's the overarching message of Christianity? God is love, God is all knowing, God is powerful, God, is all powerful. Jesus is God's son, and because God loved us, he sent Jesus, right? Like those are the overarching messages of Christianity. It's all about love. Love your neighbor, love yourself, love your God. So the rest of it, I feel you can fight about all of that all day long. And I have, where did this come from? Who said this? Why is it in the Bible? Why is this there? Like you start getting lost in something, and rather than like really stopping and like looking at the vastness of it, which is love. And
Yeah.
you don't have to agree with people, but should you do things to harm those people? I mean,
Yeah. I mean, the corruption of the message of love has pretty much been one person, this or this group of people with a political or a financial motivation to add this belief, to layer this junk on top to get people to be compliant and to pay and to feel like they should be slaves. Like if you had a leader who, a king or a priest or a leader that believed that he should be wealthy and that the rest of the people are just peons, then he would make you slaves by over taxation and over, wanting donations for the religion. And he would be wealthy and you would be poor. Like we can see evidence of that throughout history.
oh,
The
and
message was supposed to be love.
yeah, oh man, and that's brutal what you're talking about, how the heads of the church and state would take people's money and tell people that they're going into heaven, indulgences of that time period and stuff, like just really non-loving things, very harmful things, right? So I think we have to get down to like the message. What's the message? If religion, if faith is your thing, what is the message there? And even if you're not a religious person, our society, the message of religion is very powerful, and that's where that shame piece comes in around our sexuality and our authenticity, and maybe around our sexual orientation, our gender identity, and how we're supposed to show up in the world. So I mean, there's a lot to undo. Even if you think, well, I'm not even part of a faith. Well, yes, that's true, but you've received all the messages too. We all have.
Yeah, because it's in school. Church and state have been enmeshed for a very long time.
Yeah.
As much as we're like often not praying in school anymore, and it doesn't matter. Like the coins that we have saying God we trust, like these things are enmeshed and they're not exclusive, and we've all received all of these messages about morality and purity and
100%. So there's work to do as an individual. That's really, I think, what it comes down to. And when I have clients that are interested in exploring open relationships or BDSM and kink, the largest body of work is them understanding themselves more than anything else. I remember I had a client say to me once, I had no idea how much I was going to learn about myself when I thought about opening up my relationship. So I thought that was awesome, because I do think that people do, but I don't think it's great when we kind of willy-nilly like, oh, let's just do this. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's not, you really want to understand yourself and your motivations and your partners or your partner before you engage, before you start shaking things up too much. But it's worth it to do the work,
Yeah.
for life, for yourself. Even if you decide that, it's not for you, you've actually
Yeah.
made that decision autonomously.
And I think the more extreme a person is, either way conservative or way promiscuous, the more likely you are to have some kind of sexual trauma that is causing you to be extreme in your behavior.
Yes,
So
extreme behavior.
yeah, so if you do that work and you explore yourself, you can start to come to a middle ground or a reasonable ground. But like the more strong opinions we have, the more incited to violence we are about something, it's really something we're rejecting within ourselves that's there, that we are ashamed of to look at and to admit. And people think they're going to die if they do.
Because it feels like it, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I'm definitely no stranger to experiencing different kinds of traumas in life and things that I've had to work through. And it's very difficult. And it feels sometimes like you're never going to get out of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that when you start to really do that work, it's, research does show us that sometimes you get more anxiety and more panic as you're starting to first, uncover who you are and what you've been through and how it's impacted you. Right. So it is difficult, but you just keep moving through and you will get on the other side. It's not to say that you get over something, but you learn how to exist with the knowledge that you now have or the experiences that you've been through.
Yeah. And you can get to a place of acceptance. And the last thing you want to do, like you said, people being willy-nilly about things. If you have a nervous system that is already not able to reach emotional regulation, like if you don't have the skills, because you can learn how to emotionally regulate, but it's a skill set that most of us haven't been taught. And so if your nervous system is already fried from some kind of trauma and you're either way extreme conservative or way extreme promiscuous, you don't want to jump into things without exploring whether that's going to, like, it's a very methodical, slow process. If you throw yourself into the deep end, you're going to give yourself more trauma. You're going to be less regulated.
Exactly. So it really, I mean, I keep saying it, but it really is doing the work of getting to know yourself and love yourself for who you are.
Yeah. So I'm going to give like an example, because I think people like, there are things we're just really not willing to look at. So for me, masturbation was like a big no-no. When I was little, it was, we don't do that, but I had never stopped doing it. I just felt really ashamed of it. And I felt like dirty after, and I'd feel like, what's wrong with me? And da, 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 da. And so, when it was presented to me in a therapeutic sense, and to just be with it, to be with my body, even if I'm not touching myself, this is, how I started, just to notice all the thoughts and emotions that are happening with just contemplating it.
Yes.
And then start doing like a little, and notice what's happening in your mind and your emotional body, and stop when you're done, you're done. And you go as far as you're willing to go, but it's just noticing who's in there and what those thoughts are, who's saying that, because it might not be you.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Exactly. Whose messages is this? Where is this coming from? It's asked my clients a lot. Where did you learn this? Who told you this? What were the messages in your family, in your community? Because we are inundated. And then we take it on. Well, how did your parents interact with each other? How much of you are like your mom or your dad? I mean, we hate to say it, I think most of us don't want to be like our parents, but we are oftentimes like the people that raised us. We have to be willing to like look at all of those things. So I mean, it can be hard because you have to maybe learn to love parts of yourself that you're not even that fond of either, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And all the, and like you said, all the messages, where do all these messages come from? Like stopping and being with your body. How am I talking to myself today? How am I treating myself?
Yeah. And another example I'll give is like the way that I am with my kids. Looking at a part of myself that I didn't want to see was like I was on autopilot. Just my kids get too loud, I snap at them and be quiet, and then noticing like their face falling and all the, and then I'm like, wait, why am I doing that? Oh, because that's what was modeled to me by my parents. Okay. And then to not be like, well, now I'm a bad parent and I'm just like my parents, and then to start chastising and whipping myself.
Yep.
It's like, no, okay, that makes a lot of sense. Of course I'm copying that behavior. I don't know anything different.
Exactly. And being able to forgive yourself for what you didn't know that you didn't know, right?
Yeah.
And that you recognized it, and beating yourself up doesn't change it. What changes it is the active work of changing it, right? Noticing
Learning
it.
something new.
Yeah, exactly.
And practicing it.
Yeah. One of the things I tell a lot of my clients when they're trying to learn how to communicate, or how they're trying to understand their feelings. Who taught you how to communicate? No one. Okay. Well, if no one taught you how to communicate, then how did you expect to know how to communicate?
Right.
I'm like, so it's like, if it's literally like I dropped you in Japan and told you to start speaking Japanese and you never even heard the language before, right? Like that. So it's like, be kind to yourself. You've never been exposed to it.
Yeah.
So you are literally learning something new. And not only are you learning something new, but in many cases you have to unlearn something that you've been doing and it's been modeled to you since birth.
Yeah. And a lot of these things we consider basic life skills that we're just supposed to be born with knowing. And we've been mostly raised in command control authoritarian homes. Like there have been wars and the fathers were trained as soldiers, and then they come home and they treat their family that way and they think they're doing the right thing because it worked with them, got them to kill people, but we're not trying to teach anybody to kill people in our homes. We're trying to teach the opposite.
No, exactly. So it's okay to not know, but once you know that you don't know, I think we do have responsibility to do better.
Absolutely. That's when we want to learn new skills, seek out. And there are so many people that do have better knowledge and that are willing to teach it, people like yourself.
Like yourself.
And then, yeah, I think I want to touch on relationships, romantic relationships. So open relationships, as you mentioned, people experience like this is the most challenging thing. Like I've learned things about myself. Like if you're a person who doesn't believe that you have a jealous bone in your body, try open relationship.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Meet yourself.
Maybe a natural reaction too.
Yeah. 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 But we're always, we're essentially playing out in our partners some kind of experience that we had in our childhood with our opposite sex partner or parent. So like if my dad was a workaholic, I'm going to gear myself toward dating men who are workaholics, and I'm going to keep trying to fix them in order to have a different relationship and feel like I'm important and loved. And so people don't realize that that we're doing that in
Yeah.
our romantic.
And we all do it, even in same-sex couples. It may be the opposite sex parent, it may not be, but we're all trying to fix something that didn't go the way we wanted it to go in our childhood. Until we recognize we're doing that, we're kind of doomed to repeat that. So it's something to consider. I mean, absolutely. Like, what are you trying to fix? And then you gotta go and you gotta fix the root. You have to come to peace in terms with the relationship with your parent. I feel like it sounds so Freudian right now, but it really is true that we carry all of that with us, whether we like it or not.
Yeah. And we have to find the peace within ourselves, give ourselves what we weren't receiving. And that can feel like, that doesn't mean you need to be single for the rest of your life and never be in partnership and just feel self-love and that'll be enough for you. That's not not at all what I'm saying. But if we can't give ourselves, you know, the love that we never felt that we received, we're not going to get it from somebody else. We will continually have the same relationship, the same patterns come up over and over and over. And it's all because we're expecting this external validation and we won't give it to ourselves because we don't feel worthy of it without it coming from that other person.
True. And one of the things that I do personally to try to help with self-love, because I think it's talked about a lot, self-love, love yourself. But what does it actually mean in practice? Right. So I didn't feel good a couple days ago. And I was like, oh, I still have to do this and I have to do this and blah, blah, blah. And I thought, okay, if this were my partner coming to me and saying that she doesn't feel well, what would I do? I'd say, don't do that. Take care of yourself. What do you need? Self-love is giving myself that same permission that I would give my partner. That's love. That's self-love.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like, what does it look like in practice? For like, how the way that you talk to yourself, as we talked about earlier, the way that would you speak to another person that way?
Yeah.
You know,
one of the exercises that I went through on a webinar was like, write down 10 things you say to yourself in the mirror every day when you look in the mirror, not when you're being conscious, but like what you're really saying.
yeah.
And so wrote those 10 things down. They're like, okay, great. Now I want you to call up your best friend and say those things to her. And I was like,
oh.
what? And then you're like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. So that really is, the self-love is more than just saying I'm working on self-love. Like, it's practicing and doing things that are uncomfortable, because I think for many of us, it is uncomfortable to say, I don't feel well today and I'm taking a break.
Yeah.
Or, you know what,
Absolutely.
I look great today, versus like, oh, my hair is that, I look like this. Oh, what's wrong? I look tired. Right. Like, we're so quick to like pull ourselves apart.
Yeah, it's so habitual. It's not even
Yeah.
true. It's not necessarily that we actually think that. We just watched adults do that when we were kids. And so we're doing it. And if we're not watching it and our parents were watching it in magazines or TV shows or wherever else, there's somebody modeling that to us. That's not our natural state.
Exactly. And we have to be cognizant of it. And we can change those thoughts. We really can. I mean, we can change our neural pathways. It's just reminding yourself, even if you have to set an alarm on your phone. My alarm went off. How am I treating myself today alarm, right? Like, how am I talking to myself?
I have had those alarms a
Yeah.
lot.
Yeah. Like, what do you need to do to be kind to yourself and to honor yourself and empower yourself to live your best life?
Yeah, and I don't even necessarily have to like go and do something. Like, a lot of people think self-care means going to the spa and it's got to cost a bunch of money and it's got to take a lot of time. A lot of times that alarm goes off and I'm just like, how's my overall feeling about myself, right? Am I feeling icky? Am I feeling guilty? Am I feeling ashamed? What am I beating myself up about?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Notice those thoughts. Do we need to know that? Do we need to do that? Is that true? Is that absolutely true? When you really are connected with God and your divinity, you know that that's not true because God created you in his image and you are love and God is love. And so when you know that, you hear it, you feel that icky energy that you're having about yourself, and you're like, no, that isn't true. That's a habit. It's a habitual thought. I'm gonna choose a different one right now.
Yes. Yes. So just practice. Just
But
practice.
it's continual practice, because
Yep.
you will very easily fall back into those ruts.
Well, because the message doesn't stop, right?
Right.
The negative messages, we're inundated all the time. So we have to counteract it.
Yeah, exactly. That's challenging thing about global marketing and
Yes.
all the different things that we're told every day about how inadequate we are without buying some product.
I know. And really finding peace and wisdom just within.
Yeah, yeah. So have you worked with clients in open relationship, and what are some of the insights that they learn about themselves and their partners? What are some of the value that they get out of it?
So oftentimes people will learn a lot about their attachment styles, and they will have to confront a lot of messaging that they received growing up. And they'll also have to really hone those communication skills. The communication is everything, and being able to set boundaries. So it's like learning how to do all of these things. If exploring an open relationship is great when you're out in the world outside of that relationship too. Like the boundary part is really important. Having discussions around things that could seem almost too simple for folks that aren't exploring open relationships, like how often do you date other people? What does it mean to be in an open relationship? What does it mean for you? Because it's different for everybody. It's not the same thing, right? So it really is getting to understand yourself and your particular needs and desires, and a willingness to be able to say, oh, this does work for me, or this does not work for me. And, really feeling confident and connected within yourself and knowing how to fulfill yourself as well, because you can't rely on your partner to be your sense of fulfillment. I don't think anyone should really rely on their partner to be their sense of fulfillment anyway, but in an open relationship, it really pushes you harder to be able to self-soothe in challenging situations, because it is difficult. It is I have yet to meet a person who hasn't had some struggle within an open relationship dynamic, not because the open relationship itself is wrong or bad, but because they're learning about themselves and what they need and want in relationships, right? Like there's not a prescribed way of doing it. Relationships are hard no matter what kind of dynamic you're in.
Yeah. In our society, teaching the STIs, STDs, and women, I don't want to put a certain age on it, but I would say 40 and older for sure. We're kind of programmed to believe that men kind of owed them commitment as a provider, and that if they weren't willing to do that, then he shouldn't have access to my body. So we were using our body as like a currency. And so that's a really challenging thing to overcome, to start to recognize that sex and intimacy and love is not transactional.
Yeah. And what if you as a female want to have a sexual relationship? So
what if you don't want a commitment from him?
Yeah. What if you don't want it? Like that's right. Like that's you giving into the messaging versus what do you actually want?
Yeah.
You may want it. You may want a monogamous commitment. You may not. You may not. It's fine either way. But like, what about you? What are you actually feeling and thinking?
There's not every man that you're physically attracted to and may want to have sex with may not be a person that you want to have emotional intimacy, intellectual intimacy with. You may just want to do that one time, and our society is like, then you're a whore and you're dirty, and that is just
Damaged.
Well, it's silly because men aren't getting that message, right?
Oh, of course not. Of course not. So we got to turn this around. I think slowly, very slowly, snail's pace, it's turning around, but we have a lot more work to do around this.
Yeah. And I love what you were saying about, communication and boundaries. It's more challenging in open relationship, but it applies to monogamy as well, because we have different ideas. I was in a Facebook group chat and we were just talking about what monogamy is, and everybody had a different idea. There were different rules for each person. It was like, well, you can have physical intimacy with somebody else, but not emotional intimacy. And then another person would be like, well, we're seeing each other, but we're exclusive, but we're not really in a relationship. We're not including them in our family and friendship. And then you've got, there are so many different versions of what that means.
Totally. That's always what is so perplexing, right? Is no one's on the same page about what things mean. So we have to communicate together, even if it's uncomfortable. What do you want? What are you looking for? What works for you? What doesn't work? And if something doesn't align with you, you got to go. You're not going to change somebody. You're not going to change. Honor yourself and honor them.
Yeah, it's kind of you don't have an obligation to change or for them to change. It's okay. It's okay. There's plenty of people in the world to interact with. I think a lot of times, for me particularly, I would not communicate because I felt stupid if I asked a question that I thought I should know the answer to, that was a basic assumption that everybody, makes. And I think a lot of us think that, like,
there are no basic assumptions. Like you said, even in a monogamy group, everyone had a different answer.
Yeah.
But I bet you, if you asked someone, do you think monogamy is the same for most people, they would probably say yes.
They would. I think so.
Because we don't talk about it.
Yeah. Conversations and vulnerability are helpful. They do matter, and they're not a waste of time.
No, not at all. It's how you get your needs met.
Yeah.
Look, you know what? I don't know. We may have more than one go around here. I'm not sure, but all I know is I remember only this go around. I want to make the most of it.
Absolutely. Yeah. I get this experience in this particular body this time, and I want to learn about it, and I want to know.
Exactly.
I think that's what we're here for, right?
Same.
Yeah. So tell us how to find you and your courses and how to work with you.
So to work with me, you can go to Ann Russo, RUSSO.org, or to work with one of the therapists at my practice, you can go to AMRtherapy.com.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And are you on social media, or?
I am the practices, and I am personally as well. AMR Therapy or Ann Russo.
Okay. Awesome. Amazing. Thank you for this conversation and for being here.
Yes.
And thank you for what you're doing in the world.
Same to you. Thank you. And I hope you have a lovely weekend. And I hope that your listeners really get something out of our conversation today.
Me too. Have a great weekend. Bye.